upon them. Once she found the scrolls taken from the me, she knew why the elders whispered, their gazes searching furtively around for listeners. Inside the rolled parchments were spells that were supposed to have been destroyed. Deirdre smiled as she tucked one particular scroll up her sleeve and turned to leave. "How dare you!" her aunt screamed as she stared at Deirdre from the doorway. Deirdre smiled to hide her surprise. She had expected to get caught, just not by her aunt. But any person would do for her purpose. "I dare many things, Aunt. You'll pay for snooping where you don't belong, you little viper," her aunt said, spittle flying from her thin lips. "You always did like to slink into belongings that weren't yours. And what do you think to do about it?" Her aunt raised her hand to send a blast of magic. Deirdre flicked her wrist, and her aunt slammed back against her cottage door, her eyes wide with dawning recognition of just how powerful Deirdre was. Without hesitation, Deirdre unsheathed the dagger she kept at her waist and plunged it into her aunt's heart. It was the first time she had killed, but it wouldn't be the last. Deirdre left the cottage and turned to stare at her mountain. That's when she felt her sister's eyes upon her once more. She turned to her twin, Laria. Both shared the blonde hair and sky-blue eyes of their mother, but that's where their similarities ended. As her twin, Laria often knew when Deirdre had been into some mischief. Deirdre didn't expect to have an ally in her sister. In fact, Deirdre knew she would have to kill Laria. "What have you done?" Laria asked calmly, but her shrewd eyes saw everything. Deirdre looked into pale blue eyes that matched her own. She felt for her sister's magic, but just as always, there was nothing. Still, Laria was her twin. "The start of something wonderful, sister. Why don't you join me? You know I won't." "A pity," Deirdre said, and raised the dagger. Laria glanced at the weapon as if it were a flower instead of a weapon with blood dripping from the end. "Will you kill us all?" Deirdre began to laugh as the thought took root. She let loose a scream that had everyone running toward her. With her sister watching, Deirdre put on the performance of her life. "Aunt has gained power," Deirdre shouted as she faked her tears and stumbled around. "She tried to kill me. She said she and Uncle would rule over all of us." Just as Deirdre expected, chaos erupted. She watched as everyone turned on everyone else as accusations flew. A slaughter ensued. Deirdre backed away even though she couldn't take her eyes from the blood and death. The sight before her was gruesome and awesome, feeding the evil inside her. "Come to me." The mountain. It called to her relentlessly, and she would no longer ignore it. Deirdre turned her back on her tribe and looked at the mountain that was hers. It was time for her to embrace her destiny. "You will pay for what you have done, Deirdre." She looked over her shoulder at her twin. Blood dripped from a deep cut on Laria's arm, and her lip was busted. "Do you think you can stop me? We both know I'm the one who received all the magic. Be glad I'm not slitting your throat, sister." Deirdre had turned and walked to her mountain. There, in the cool stones, she found the first contentment of her life. Nothing else mattered but the mountain and the stones called to her. And she learned she had power over them. She could make the stones move and shift. It was how she created her palace within the huge mountain, the only real home she had ever known. Sharp nails slid through her hair and brought her back to the present. Deirdre opened her eyes and looked down to find a wyvern staring up at her, with its large yellow eyes, as it reverently stroked her hair. How long had she been lost in the past? How long had the stones pulled her under this time? Deirdre petted the wyvern's smooth head. The wyvern was of her own making. She had used her black magic and created the creatures that served only her. They were her